Hello everyone, great to see you again. Sorry, it has been a really long time since last update. It's just been really busy recently. There's one good news I want to share with everyone watching this video. Um, I've seen the channel has now 114 people. And it's really a surprise to me because initially when I started this channel, it's really just to share some knowledge to new starters. I never imagined the people over um, 100 even. Now it seems, yeah, there are 114 people at the points I'm just talking. Yeah, that's really a great encouragement to me, and I hope um, some of these videos will help in your case and help you to understand some of the quite basic concepts with the products and how things work. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is I'm trying to finding some topics to talk into a bit more details because so far I think most of the um, videos is around quite high level, let's say functional and even technically it is quite high level. We talk through basically what is available in the system, what you can use that for. Now, today I want to talk a bit in details in terms of the UI, how things work behind the scene. You don't necessarily know about that every day, I mean, during your daily work. Um, but I think it's important and it is quite essential if you have to change the UI for customer if you want to customize some of the pages using portal, zone, etc. So I think I will carry on with these topics in a bit more details going forward. But let me know anything which I have missed, and obviously. I will be catching up some of the other topics. So, I mean, I haven't covered everything. I'm sure, but if you think there is more um, urgency on some of the topic you want to hear about, let me know. Add comments in the video. Okay, so regarding UI, I think we did talk about these things earlier on a very high level, like UI map, zone, which we can use, and how you can link I mean, building the data structure for UI map using schema. You can include the BO, etc., and then add the display the fields on the UI map using the arrow fields. For example, there are a lot of details you can look at, but at least we went through how the UI map works, and you can also add in some JavaScript functions if needed. Now, I think there are I think there are mainly two questions being raised on UI afterwards. One is how the navigation actually works. So, for example, when if I choose from an item on the menu, how does it actually go into another page, and how if I click on a link, how does the link actually navigate to um, another page, for example? So this I would covering the navigation part, we'll have a quick look at the UI map zone. I mean, zone have many usage in C2M, and one of the most important is when we create a UI map, we want to use the zone to query the data behind it and to display that on the UI as well. And number three is another topic I've heard people want to know how broadcast actually works. So, for example, you must have seen the broadcast button. What actually happens at the back end and how could you configure it? Okay, and then number four, I think we go through example to make it more concrete and understandable. Okay, so navigation. Okay, here I want to introduce two concepts. One is navigation option and one is navigation key. You can find both of them in the admin menu. You can look through them yourself as well. But I think we need to understand what they are. Okay, so navigation key actually defines a unique location to which a user can navigate. So for example, each page in the system has unique navigation key. Okay, so it is actually the target URL. Although it is not the actual URL, but it's actually its target URL in the metadata. Um, okay, so navigation keys can also define location that are outside of the system. For example, you can create a navigation key referring to external URL. Um, you can think of a navigation key as where to go. Okay. Navigation option. Navigation option defines how a page is open when a user wants to navigate somewhere. Okay, so navigation option normally refers to a navigation key. Not all the time, but it can. For example, you may have a navigation key that identifies a specific page. This navigation key can then be referenced on two navigation options. First option may allow user to navigate to the page with no context included, and the second navigate to the page with context data provided. Okay, so on the navigation option, you could actually define what is the context data. We will look at that in a bit more details later. There are three different types of navigation keys. System navigation key, which means internal page. External navigation key, which could be URL, and also the help. This is very interesting because when you open the help page, it actually dynamically goes into the right page for you to look. So, for example, if you are on the account and you click on the help, it will bring the information about the account. So, how does it actually do that? The navigation key is the same for all the pages, but actually it brings the context of that page, so the help document actually understand and it brings back what is related to the context you're asking for. So that is really helpful example actually, because this let the user look at the right documentation very quickly and very directly. Okay, so I post down some screenshots here, how the navigation actually works. Okay, so the first thing you do is, let's say I'm trying to explain how a menu item actually navigate to a page in this example. Okay, so you can define a menu. Okay, and on the menu you can define menu items. You have seen the menu yourself. You know, you can define what are the menu items, and for different menu items you can have different type. For example, it could be a navigation option, it could be a sub menu, so you have multiple level of menu. But let's say in this case it is a navigation option, which you can click on that menu and it will just go to account. Okay, what it does is calling the navigation option, which is on over here. This is a account navigation option. What you can see here is it has a target transaction, which is account main. So that is a navigation key. So we said we have um, a menu triggering navigation option, um, which actually refers to a navigation key. And underneath here we have navigation key, and this actually performs a system program, which basically goes to the account page. Okay. Also, what I put here is there is foreigner key reference. This is another example where you see there is a link on the page, right? You always see when let's say when you do a search, it return list of items. One of them is let's say a system. Um, it's a link to account. So that link actually is calling a foreigner key reference, and the foreigner key reference is actually calling um, the navigation option at the back end, which goes through the same routine as the menu does. So either you can trigger from menu, or you can trigger from menu the reference a foreigner key reference. There are some other options. Happy for you to investigate yourself from basically for navigation option where it can be triggered from. But these two are the main used options. Okay, so second part I would talk about is UI map zone. Okay, so for the zone, I guess if you have worked on the um, C2M system, you probably know the zone pretty well, and potentially you probably know it better than I do. I think we talk about zone can be used either from a UI perspective, or it could be called from a business service where a query be can be a SQL can be executed based on the based on what data we want to retrieve, and also um, all the parameters we pass in, and that parameter could be a hidden parameters, uh, which is taken from the context data, or it can be a menu input, which is probably passed in as parameters from business service, for example. Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but just to remind you, zone is quite complex and there are a lot of options which you can specify. We will look at some examples a bit later so that you can understand what is happening with different options. So part 3, broadcast. Okay, so probably you have seen this before, right? There is icon here uh, when you are doing a search on a page, icon displays, and you click on the icon, you find okay, there is some other information just appears, which help you to understand more on the details on the record you have chosen. So basically, some zones have been configured to broadcast unique identifier to other zones within the portal. What happens is when you are configuring the zone, you can say for one particular zone, if I broadcast the record, there are certain attributes that make it commonly available for the whole page. And on the same page, all the other zones, when they are starting up, they take this information and then display well, it's not just display, but you can display, filter, enrich your uh, query at to make sure the right data actually appears. Okay, um, so yeah, so normally this broadcast button is in the first column of the results list, and when you click on that, it reload all the other zones, and it will basically trigger the queries within those zones and then working accordingly. Okay, there's more exciting stuff. So let's look at some examples. Maybe we can clarify what I actually mean by what has been discussed. So if I take one example here, okay, so I take some screenshots here. Um, we are looking at one example where I start to search on the page where in this case, is extendable lookup query. And then second, it will list all the results. Once it lists all the results, I pick one of the record I want to broadcast, and then uh, once the broadcast happens, the details will be displayed. Okay, so let's look at each step what actually happens. So here we have a page which is I think the main part is a zone of its own, and one of the well, it's a portal of its own, and the first zone is called extendable lookup search, and the detail of our zone is as below. Okay, so this is very interesting because if we look at some of this information, first of all, what is the filter? Okay, the filter is you have user filter 1, user filter 2. They are actually according to these two fields. The first field is for the business object, the second is description. So it actually is saying the first field is taken from business object code. Well, this is a label is business object code because in I mean, the the when you're showing in the result, the label will be used. But in this case, because we know the first field is the user filter 1 and second one is the user filter 2, it is the label doesn't really matter. But what is important here is you see there is a field called likable. So that is actually do a fuzzy match rather than an exact match. Okay, so that is something if you are designing your search page can be used. And then what happens is the SQL part behind the zone. So in this SQL, actually, it takes in the business object code, and also it is running a query at backend. Okay, the query is also always in SQL, so you have this SQL statement. But what is important here is it's returning two fields, and for first field it is returning a SQL column, and the column is business object code. So if you look at this SQL, you can see it only returns one field, right? It's a dot business object code, and that is returning in this column one. But what happens for the column two is it's using the same uh, using the same output, but it is referring to a foreigner reference key. Why does it do that? Because if you have a foreigner reference key, then you can actually um, click on that link, and then based on what is configured behind it, the navigation key, it will actually go to the right page, right? So this is a technique that can be used. So the column return from the SQL can be used in different ways. And in this case, one is to display what it is, and the second is to make it info string so that the user can navigate. Okay, so once we click the search button, queries run at the back end, it shows the results. As we have explained, it's no surprise it returned two columns, and the first one is the label, the second one is the link. Okay, although it's calling itself as business object and description. For one of these, we have chosen, it shows a list of extendable lookup value list, extendable lookup value list, and this is the one we've chosen is called the D1 OK to enter lookup. Okay, and obviously this is another zone, but then it's also a search zone. This zone is taking an input of the business objects. So we can see here there's a hidden filter, which is the business object code. This was taken from the other zone we have chosen, okay, from the last page. Now, why is it a hidden filter? Because it's not explicitly passed in, because you click on that link, it actually broadcasts that to this particular zone, so it can show all the value related to this BO. On the right hand side, what we can see is, again, it is something similar, but we pass in the condition, which is H1, which is over here, the hidden filter 1, and there's a SQL behind it. It's bringing a few values to us, and I guess the first one is it's a string, and it's from extendable lookup value, which we can see the value is here. Okay, so this is first column. Obviously, it has multiple columns, and some of them are used or um, I mean, from here you can see the second one is the usage flag, which is probably not showing here, but the next one is the owner flag. Owner flag is showing here. Okay, but what is important is if we look at the broadcast information, this is another attribute on the zone. It is basically saying I want to expose two values to all the other zones. The first one is the business object code, which is C9, which is probably it returns 9 columns or more than 9 columns. The ninth column over here, and the over here it is saying I want to also to expose the expandable lookup value, which is C1. Okay, C1 is the false okay to enter and true, for example. Now, what that actually means, if you click on this broadcast button, these two values will be exposed. Business object code in this case is probably common for all of these, but then the expandable lookup value will be unique. It depends on which row you click. Once this has been clicked, we will see what the result is. On the same portal, there is another zone, which is basically the extendable lookup. So in this case, we probably have clicked the broadcast on the false with the value false, and actually it brings up this detail page. At the back end of this detail page, you must see there is hidden input variable of those two, because based on those two values, it brings the right detail page up, and then it shows the user what are the information related. So that's a very quick example of going through how these pages are actually linked. But what you need to understand is there are different places. For example, we use the hidden variable, we use the broadcast information. These are linked with each other. Okay, so these uh, attributes on the zone, which is really linking things together. There are a lot of examples besides this extendable lookup. You should be able to look at the configuration yourself if you want to learn a bit more. Okay, so that's everything. Great to see you, and I will hope I get next video out soon. Thank you. See you next time.